I'm George.
I'm Devyn, and this is Medicinema, your healthy dose of film.
Today, we will discuss two sci-fi films. First, the 1978 remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, though we will also briefly touch on the difference to the 1956 original. Then the new Looney Tunes movie, The Day the Earth Blew Up, and despite having a clear name similarity to another sci-fi classic with The Day the Earth Stood Still, is mainly influenced by the Body Snatcher films as well as its own Looney Tunes history. But first, Devin, tell me about a recent film discovery you've made.
Sadly, my recent film discovery wasn't a good one. I have been in a bit of a busy rut this past month and haven't had a lot of time to watch movies. And instead of finding a movie that I really, really loved, I've discovered a movie that I absolutely hated. Quick disclaimer. I know that this movie is beloved by many people, and I'm sorry that you have to hear this. I recently saw The Notebook, finally. I really hated this movie. How are you going to depict a trashy fighting in the Walmart parking lot type, I hate them, but the sex is good type, hold you hostage until you love me type, couple is a romantic endeavor? This is like watching a 50s era version of like my ex-girlfriend and her new boyfriend death spiral into a spinning sea of shame and white trashedness. My only guess here is that people attach the movie to the whole he's reading her past so she remembers, and that's so beautiful, which for sure is a beautiful thing. But that just doesn't outweigh the absolute shitty way that these two people are and how little I cared about them during this movie. Fuck this cheesy movie and fuck the impression of love that I feel like it put on an entire generation of people. That's my feelings about this film, and I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's a take that a bunch of people are gonna get upset about. But yeah, I also I watched this some years ago now, to be fair. However,
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember anything at all about it. According to my letterbox, I gave it like 2.5 stars. So apparently I didn't love it either. And according to what you just said, that might still be too highly rated on my end.
Just to give you an idea, their relationship in the film starts because she's on a date with another guy on a Ferris wheel. And the guy turns the Ferris wheel off, climbs up to their like sitting carriage thing, and then holds on and is like, I am going to let go and kill myself if you don't leave this
Oh
guy to
my
go on a
god,
date with
yeah.
me. And
Yeah.
that's how their relationship begins.
Yeah, I remember that.
When I was in high school, this movie was like the ultimate, every girl wanted the Notebook relationship. And like, this was the like, this is love. This is love on film. This is the most, and like even guys would be like, no, have you seen the Notebook? It really is really good. It really is. It's the one chick flick I really like. Yeah, I guess because it's about a possessive dude and chick who fight each other all the time and just like survive purely on makeup sex. It's God, what a terrible film.
Yeah, didn't age too well.
And what about you? I hear you have a movie discovery of your own.
Yeah, recently I watched The Sacrifice by Andrei Tarkovsky. It was released in 1986 and therefore his last movie he ever made. Shot in Sweden with Swedish actors that you might otherwise also see in Ingmar Bergman movies. It is definitely one of his less accessible films, and he isn't the most accessible director to begin with. It is a drama about a family living far out on the countryside as nuclear war starts. They themselves aren't directly in any of the destruction, but with infrastructure pretty much instantly collapsing, doom is just a matter of time, and it becomes a slow drama about scars and regrets. Many people read this regret at the end of the line as autobiographical, and to me, this was also the most interesting way to think about it. It is stunningly shot, has an iconic final fire sequence that almost killed the movie because they had to shoot it twice with the camera jamming on the first take and the budget just suddenly exploding because they had to rebuild a giant set that just burned down for nothing. It's well acted and has some beautiful poetic life lessons. If you, however, expect a lot of plot, then this one won't be for you.
Interesting. That's so. But basically, you're just saying this one is not for me. Is what you're telling me right now.
You are in that group of people I said that last sentence to, yeah.
Well, I'm happy you enjoyed it so much. Give me 2 seconds. I have to remember what movies Tarkovsky's done.
Stalker, Solaris.
Oh, yeah, no, I hate this guy. So I'm happy you liked it. But no, yeah, I did not. I already did not like either of those movies so much. Which is funny because it's one of those things where it's like a lot of people like Lovecraftian things, Cthulhu and like stuff like that, right?
Mhm.
But then they go try to read Lovecraft and they're like, what is this? What is this garbage? And they don't like it. It's too boring or dry and
Mhm.
too oldly worded. But they like the things that he's spawned, the ideas that have come from him that other people have ran with. And I feel the exact same way about Tarkovsky. There's so many video games and other stories that are based out of Stalker
Mhm.
that are infinitely more entertaining to me than Stalker itself.
There's also like Solaris had a huge impact on sci-fi films in general. There's a lot of
Absolutely.
inspiration from that taken.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's fair. Like Tarkovsky is really a specific type of filmmaker, and it's not for everyone, and I totally understand why.
He's definitely one of those like your filmmaker's favorite filmmaker type people.
True. He's up there for that title.
So moving back 1 year from the experimental sci-fi of Stalker from 1979 to 1978, we go to the more classic, straightforward sci-fi with Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Warning. The following program contains spoilers. Viewers' discretion is advised.
Directed by Philip Kaufman in 1978, Invasion of the Body Snatchers is a remake of the 1956 sci-fi classic by the same name. It shows an alien life form raining down on planet Earth, growing into plants and slowly producing compliant clones of humans to replace humanity one by one. We follow Matthew, a health inspector, and Elizabeth, a biologist, slowly losing their friends one after the other as they fight not to be replaced. So, this is gonna be a very Devyn-centric episode. I'm gonna lean back a bit, and you're gonna have to do some of the heavy lifting on this one. Absolutely out of my depth when it comes to movie expertise here. Devyn, tell me about your relationship to Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
My relationship to this movie, for the most part in my life, has been kind of more tangential. I didn't see this movie till a little later. I'd seen the original before when I was young because I went through this really big, like 1950s black and white movie spree when I was like 16 or 15. I just watched like as many as I could find of these old sci-fi movies. And I don't remember when I ended up watching this one. But I feel like this is one of those movies that are so like, I don't know if it applies obviously to Austrian culture or not, but like it's ingrained in American culture. Like, I mean, it's not as common anymore, but like the term pod people is like what I think 15 years ago people call like, like when somebody's like, oh, those people are NPCs. Do you know what I mean? Like we would say like they're pod people like 10, 20 years ago. So there was a time where like, this story really ingratiated itself into American society already. And just like there are so many parodies and pulls in other cartoons and movies that like reference this in some way or another that it's almost impossible to not already just know about it, and have it be part of like your film sphere.
Mm.
Was it like that for you where you live in Austria, or was this like a completely new film experience?
It is definitely a huge classic that I basically just missed out on. It's not my genre, really. Like any old school sci-fi stuff is really not my go-to, so I just never really got into it. But any Austrian sci-fi buff would just hate me for that, as well as any international would.
Okay, that's good.
That's good, yeah. Let's bring on the hate. I was wondering how this then compares to something like The Thing, because I realized from just the release years, those are kind of parallel franchises, if you're gonna call it that. The Thing from Another World, released in 1951, and the original Body Snatchers in 56, And then 20 years came and went before the remake of Body Snatchers released in 78, and then the remake of The Thing released in 82, which I thought was an interesting parallel. How do those compare, you would say, in like fandom?
I would say honestly that The Thing from Another World is the lesser of the films, right? In general, I think The Thing from Another World is kind of a cheesy. It's good, but it's not like The Thing. Okay, it doesn't really hold that same thing. It's like, from what I remember, it's just like a really basic shapeshifter, right? Like very basic, like just like can look like another person, and that's it. The 50s way that they did that kind of stuff was like time lapsing a face changing. It wasn't like, grotesque or whatever, it was very basic. And then the 50s version of this, it's psychological in a way, because you're dealing with all these characters who aren't acting like themselves, and that's still a really prevalent idea. Whereas the black and white thing versus the 80s thing are almost completely different stories, right? With just a basic premise, idea, through line almost. Like this is really a proper remake of the 50s version. There's a couple characters changed around. A couple professions have been updated to be more, late 70s or whatever. I think Jeff Goldblum's character is a Belichick. He's he runs like a bathhouse or something in this one, and he's like a writer, right? In the 50s one, he's a doctor.
Okay.
So like it's just, they updated a couple things or whatever, but it's roughly the same plot beats, and they, he goes to Belichick's house and they find Belichick's bodies. His double is there. All of that exactly happens in the 50s version as well. From what I understand, this movie was actually kind of a big deal in the 70s for being like one of the first really popular remakes of a film.
Okay.
And is considered a big part of the resurgence of remaking old sci-fi movies in general. And so there's actually an argument to be made that The Thing might not have actually been made if this hadn't come first.
I was wondering with like the impact of maybe done already the original Body Snatchers movie. Do you know if there's any like connection to pseudoscience and conspiracy theories with the original? Because one thing I really couldn't make out with the 70s movie here is that they very prominently show this one pseudoscience book at one point, Worlds in Collision, that I looked into, and it just tells this weird evangelist, like somewhat biblically inspired version of how the Earth came to be.
Was this Belichick's character had this book?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's like maybe that the original kind of became so popular or anything that conspiracy theories became closer to what that movie resembled, as to aliens are already beneath us or something, just to give me some sort of explanation of what exactly was up with that book.
So I think the book is actually more geared toward Belichick's character and the type of guy he is. Like I said, in the 50s version, he's this doctor.
I think his wife was it actually, who had the book, now that I think of it.
Okay. That's still fair, yeah. In the 50s version, like him and his wife are really silly, and like they're kind of drunk when this whole thing happens at their house, right? And they kind of like almost have swingery vibes, if that makes sense. Like they're still living in the roaring 20s, I think, at heart. And I think the translation into the 70s is that, pseudoscience was really big in the 70s. So I think that that's kind of more a play at Belichick and his wife of like, he's this hip writer, bohemian type sciencey guy, and she's this like new agey kind of like chick or whatever. And so that they, they have a unique view of the pod people at first or whatever. I don't think it necessarily has to do with the overall theme of pod people or whatever. I think because a really big, strong theme in these movies is actually like about government and like about political alignments and shit is kind of what the hidden message is supposed to be about the movie. So I don't think it really is trying to be like conspiracy theory.
Okay. I guess this kind of fits in. The way I kind of looked at it was all again through comparing it to The Thing, where in like The Thing we are stuck with this group of people who are all scientists, all experts of the problems they are facing. They all make famously great decisions, for particularly for a horror film, who often has like this trope of the movie can just happen because the protagonists are making all the wrong choices. And here it felt a bit opposite to that. We have, a health inspector, which is somewhat adjacent, and this biologist lady. But then we have, as I said, a spa manager, a psychiatrist, an author. And, it kind of felt fitting for that kind of group to have someone who's not only not an expert, but actually believes in a totally different thing altogether. That was my way to comprehend it.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, no, like the 50s version really tries to push this idea of like the Cold War paranoia and like communists and this fear that like anybody could be a communist. Your neighbor could be a communist. It could be your brother. It could be your mother. You don't know. That's like the analogy they're trying to make, right? In this one, they kind of blatantly say it. But if you look at the types of characters you're talking about, right? A psychologist, an author, right? These are traditionally in the 70s, at least, very liberal.
Leftist.
Yeah, they're exactly. They're very liberal roles. And at one point, he even says it when he's like asking, "What's wrong with your husband?" He's like, "Is he sick? Is he, is something wrong? Has he been nightmares? Is he a Republican?" Like he even makes that joke, right?
Yeah, true.
So that's the big theme of the 78 version, is that they're trying to be like, even your neighbor could be a conservative and could be against this. This is exiting the decade previous. Before this was the free love decade. You know what I mean?
Interesting then that it's released in 78, because like 80s was huge for Republicans, right? They had like 8 years of Reagan or something was all in the 80s. Yeah.
Which actually makes a little bit of sense because, that's the gear up. This is them, saying like, hey, they are among us. And then all of a sudden they took over or whatever, right? Just like in the movie, they take over in the end. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a prerequisite. In fact, I would be interested to see what year the Republicans took hold in the 70s to 80s. I wonder if it was around that exact time. I don't know my own history enough. I do want to say really quick, the opening of this movie and the spores coming off the planet is a really fucking cool effect.
Yeah.
I understand the idea of like doing where they drop things in water and you watch it through glass and then they superimpose that onto video, right? And I understand that effect system. That's not what's happening here. It's something else in water, but I don't know what they're doing. But man, I thought it was really, really effective to be like alien spores.
I thought about it too. My best guess was that it was water tank work, but they dropped some sort of like almost cotton into
that's
that.
That's what I was wondering, like soaked cotton or something. Or some
because a lot of it would become transparent then, and some would still shine through. And I think that's what's happening, that they are like, maybe it's in camera, maybe it's double exposing. But I assumed that it was like soaked cotton dumped into a water tank.
Just a very neat effect that I don't think I've really seen used in that way since, honestly. And I just liked it. I really liked that.
Yeah.
Another moment that kind of touches on like the conservatism of that time is that in the bookstore, the woman is like trying to explain like, hey, I'm having this problem to that other psychologist, right? Even though he's supposed to be, kind of a more new agey guy too. Leonard Nimoy. She's like trying to explain to him, like, I'm having this problem. My husband isn't him. He's not, there's a real issue in my house and I don't feel safe. And he's just like, you're emotional because you're a woman and you're clearly trying to get a divorce. What's the problem? And like, that's his answer to her. It's but that's just, really pointing out the same, like, that's the era that they're living in or whatever. It's like, women aren't listened to, especially in that era. But you know what I'm saying?
For sure.
But yeah, I really thought that was an interesting dynamic. That guy Kibner is his name in general, Leonard Nimoy's character. I really thought it was funny just throughout the whole movie that you never know if that dude's a pod person or not. because that's just the way he acts all the time. And I thought that was really, really funny that it's literally impossible to know what point of the film he turns into the pod person because he never changes his dynamic. That's just who he already was.
Mm-hmm. Immediately made me think of like the ending. When I watched it, I assumed that he was suppressing his own emotions, as they figured out earlier that's a way to kind of trick them and make them believe you're one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the spa lady surprisingly shows up and she's still not one of them and talks to them, and I'm like, oh, nice, she's there. And then it's kind of this twist reveal when the protagonist just screams at her and you realize, oh.
The screaming wasn't in the original either. That's something they fabricated for the new one or whatever made, which is that whole idea has been used so many times since. So that's a very classic thing they added. But we'll come back to that actually later. Early on in the movie, when we're introduced to the main character and his job as a health inspector, we see him, doing your average health inspectory things, seeing if a place has dirt, mold, things like that, rat poops. The very classic scene. This is a turd. That's a caper. This is a turd. It's very funny. Very like that scene. But then we see him like back at his like lab and they're like, this baked potato is not real. I'm not sure if it's the butter or the sour cream, but something in it's fake. And like, that was a really good Donald Southern impression. Anyways, but yeah, I didn't expect that. But they're like analyzing the validity of the food and shit. That is not a thing in America. We do not do that. We do not care. You could grind up you could grind up hooves and mix them with milk and be like, I made a potato, eat it. And people are like, this is a funny looking tasting potato. Like, it's artificial. That's all you need to know. And that's it. That's the rule. You just got to say it's artificial. Is that something in Austria they do where they actually like test the validity of restaurants' food? Like that they're using real milk. They're using real cow milk, I guess, instead of like, mouse milk or something.
I sadly have never been in that field in any sort of tourism, any sort of restaurant. So no idea, honestly, to what degree. I know that it's a lot stricter than in America.
Yeah.
But what exactly that entails, I couldn't tell you. I have no idea.
You never worked a restaurant job?
No.
Oh man, you're not living life yet.
You're not living life until you've done your shifts at McDonald's.
Oh no, I didn't say fast food. I said restaurant job. They're very, very, very different things.
Yeah.
Do you even have McDonald's in near you?
Wow. Yeah.
No, I know they're everywhere. I just don't know if they have one near you. I don't remember if you still live out in the nowhere or not, or if you're in a more populated area now.
I don't live in the complete nowhere land anymore.
Okay.
And even back then, the closest McDonald's was like 15 minutes by car. McDonald's is just everywhere, even in Austria. When it comes to the other American famous chains like Burger King, Subway, KFC and stuff like that, they also exist, but they only really exist in the bigger cities.
That's fair. I just know that some places don't like to have McDonald's in the smaller towns. You know what I mean? Like Japan is famous for like, it doesn't really have McDonald's in the smaller cities. It has KFC. Cool. It has KFC in all the smaller cities.
That's wild.
That's because KFC is synonymous with Christmas in Japan. If you're having Christmas in Japan, you're having KFC. It's been like that since the 70s.
They did some fantastic branding then. That was a great ad campaign.
It was insane how good the branding was. It's literally like you have a Christmas tree. It's that level of tradition now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wild.
We are way off track.
Yes, I was going off. Yeah, I'm going back. But yeah, the food stuff is wild, and I thought that was an interesting thing. And I thought they would play into that more, like because he's a food scientist too. That they would like, I don't know, when they found the flowers, analyze them or do anything with that. But they never do. They never ever bring that up. It just never happens again. So I'm on this. You want to talk conspiracy theories? I think they were just trying to be like, hey, New York has healthy food, we promise. I think it was just for fucking show.
I didn't have too much of an issue there because they tried through her, right? They tried to analyze,
they did a little bit,
I think, a little flower in the lab of the biologists. And they found the first bit of evidence where they knew, okay, this is most likely from the alien body. We can test something now. To me, it felt like in a moment where they were already so far behind the wave that it just kind of came too late. So that's how I took the whole, why didn't they try to test anything? It was just like once they figured out what to even test, they were just overwhelmed with the situation already and couldn't really anymore.
It's interesting because of how like quick it takes over.
Mm-hmm.
It's over almost before you know it for them. I'll say this. It's a great era to remake it again. If you're going to continue with these political themes that you've had throughout the whole series or whatever, it's a really good era for America to remake this movie now. Because what you just said right there, it's over, it's over before you know it's too late, once you realize it's happened. Oh, man.
I feel like
that's
2015
perfect.
would have been a good year.
That would have also been a really good year, for sure,
No particular reason. Just
No, none at all.
I have one note even before the restaurant sequence. When she's introduced, we see all these kids playing at a playground, and without them ever bringing it up again, we see one random priest just ominously watching the kids, and I think he was also on the swing set, but he was just staring at the kids. I'm not sure if it's meant as like a first guy who got taken over, but the choice of making it a priest looking at children was a wild one, and I think there's definitely something with predators lurking underneath us going on with that imagery.
That's so fucking great. That's so great. I did not catch that at all.
I was like, what the hell?
God, that's really funny. That still ties in the conservatism. It's really, really good catch. I want to talk a little bit about the mechanics of this movie, because there's like a core mechanic of the first one that they kind of like loophole at some point and they just don't care anymore. So let's just talk about the mechanics. So the plant happens, it seeds, it flowers or whatever. It releases some kind of fucking chemical, and you start getting taken over, like copied onto the plant or whatever, right? Until it depletes you and you are dead and the plant is alive, right?
Yeah.
I feel like in this movie, we back and forth on the rules of that a little bit. And like, if it has to touch you or not, or if you have to be in the room, or like at some point it starts to be like you just have to be asleep for it to happen. I feel like the rules aren't very concrete in this movie, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it felt a little bit vague to me as well, but since I didn't have the comparison to the 50s version in my mind, that actually made a lot of sense. I felt, put into the same shoes of the characters who don't know how exactly this thing happens or what exactly even happens for the most part.
Okay.
And they are just overwhelmed with, anecdotal evidence basically of, okay, how do we deal with this? Is it the sleep? Is it the this? Is it that? To me, that all made sense in that kind of mystery.
Okay. I think if I would have watched this one solo this time, it might have hit like that. But because I watched the 50s one, rewatched the 50s one right before I rewatched this one, I was more like looking for that. Because in the 50s one, it's the same thing. It's the same system of like, they just, when you're sleeping or whatever, it's copying you onto the plant essentially till you die. And he's with the woman, and in the end, they're in the tunnel. Same way in this movie, they like go through that tunnel or whatever, right? She's passing out. She keeps falling asleep because they've been awake for like 4 days solid or something like that, 3 days solid. He's holding her and she falls asleep, and he like goes to check, same exact thing. He like goes to check on the outside of the tunnel to see if they're real people or not, sees that they're not real people, comes back, right? And he's like, wake up, wake up. And she opens her eyes and is like, I'm a pod person, get him. But they don't take over your body. They copy your body. What? And that's literally like the whole crux of the end of the movie, is that she's a pod person because she woke up. So like I was looking for it in this movie. Like, do they also kind of be willy-nilly? And they do, I feel like. But if it works for you, then that's fucking great. That means that it's one of those things where sometimes the vagueness of it is what makes it scarier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like that totally aided the experience. Yeah, there's some just generally great effects in this, even besides the whole seeds falling to earth. I like all of the reverse plant growing effects.
Yeah.
The kind of Evil Dead thing where they just pulled it away, either through the flower where it then grows out of, or onto the legs when they are asleep and they are being copied. All of that is super lovely. You can obviously see how it's done, but I don't mind with those practical effects, to be honest.
Yeah.
And when he smashes his own copy's head at some point, that looked really good.
Mm-hmm.
When it cuts to the head just before it gets stomped in, you can see that it's like a prepared puppet. The skin tones just ever so slightly don't fully match the real person, but the effect was still super smooth. I loved that.
Everybody was just trying to live up to that Snatchers head explosion, weren't they? Textbook best head explosion ever. This isn't the only adaptation of this movie or this story. It's a book, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's other, spawn-offs of this that aren't this. Have you ever seen The Faculty?
I don't think I have, no.
The Faculty is a remake of this movie that takes place in a high school, and it's like all of the teachers are being replaced.
Okay.
Is there any other even like slight adaptations, where it's the same basic idea of this story that you really enjoy that aren't these movies? Like, is there one that you know of?
I am sure I have seen some version of the story before. Like, I'm pretty sure I must have seen, I don't know, some kids comic or something have an episode that kind of works like this. Same kind of situation we already talked about with, Silence of the Lambs or 12 Angry Men. All these super iconic stories that just got adapted in so many ways in so many different mediums. But I couldn't name you a single one out of the top of my head right now, to be honest.
That's fair. I think my favorite adaptation of this story is the Powerpuff Girls episode in which the alien broccoli comes to Earth and takes over all the adults that try to convince their kids to eat broccoli. And the kids have to eat the broccoli aliens to save all the adults.
Yes, I think I have seen that, actually.
Yeah, I think that might be my favorite adaptation of this idea of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah, Powerpuff Girls was just barely, it was kind of fading out of TV when I got to that age, but I have seen some Powerpuff Girls and I have the image in mind of like possessed adults eating broccoli. So yeah, that makes sense. That adds up.
You should definitely watch some Powerpuff Girls because there's some very cinematic episodes that are very, very well done. I mean, it's the same guy that did Primal and Samurai Jack and the movie 9 and very, very good show. Very good. Still holds up as an adult. What's funny is that this movie always actually makes me think of a different movie. More than anything, this story called The Day of the Triffids.
Never heard of it.
I know. And I always got confused when I was a little kid about which one was which, because the Day of the Triffids is about a comet that goes by, essentially, right? And it lands and it spreads these like plants that can walk around and eat people and like take over. I don't remember if they take them over or not, but it blinds everyone that looks up at the comet when it goes by. So like the world is left blind while these plants just walk around eating people. But that's what I always think of when I think of this movie for some reason. I never even think of any of the other actual adaptations at all or anything. I'm trying to see if I have any other notes.
I just have like a few super short ones. When he is like at the red light district, just running through, trying to escape. And that one man just tells him, it's guaranteed to make you feel like a new man. That was a great joke.
I didn't even catch that.
Oh yeah, there was this one effect where the body of Elizabeth kind of collapsed in on itself. Like I think they must have made like an airtight puppet and then just pulled a vacuum on it until it literally, imploded.
Such a classic effect. And sometimes they would like in other movies they'll like fill it with goo so that when it like deflates, goo comes out the sides and stuff. That's definitely in the Guyver.
Some other movies.
Some other movies. Yeah, some other movies. Apparently, in the end of the film, when he does the scream, right?
Mhm.
That was actually shot to be an alternate ending. It wasn't the ending they were originally going to use.
Okay.
And she didn't know that he was going to do that. Originally, he's supposed to be human. And her reaction of freaking out is completely genuinely her like, what the fuck is happening? And they just kept that shot.
Very lovely. I have some thoughts on the whole sequence just before that when he goes onto that ship and kind of burns down this plantation of plants, of pods, I guess. First of all, like a positive thing, the score in that sequence is incredible. I love the way they used, like, it's a bagpipe score, but also I think with some synthesizer layered on top of it. It was a really unique choice and felt odd and fitting for the situation you found yourself in. That being said, that sequence, other than that, felt a bit off to me. Like the way the clones behaved in that sequence felt inconsistent to the way we got to learn how these clones behave. They felt a little bit like as if they were panicking and stuff like that, just running around in kind of chaos, whilst throughout the entire movie we saw them behave more like an organized anthill, if at all, than showing too little emotion. They felt too human in their performance, I feel like, in that sequence.
Interesting. I could see that. Yeah. I mean, I think the 50s one kind of does the same thing where they start off very like organized and like there's a lot of sequences in the 50s one of them like doing the same getting like the pods and shipping them off to various places, and like this one's to Portland, this one's to Nevada or whatever, right? And like sending them places. And then they also kind of like freak out and run at the guy or whatever, right?
Okay.
So it's at least consistent with the previous movie. But I don't know, maybe it's like the idea of, like an animal cornered type deal. Like
yeah, there might be thematic reasons for it, for sure. I thought within the explanations we got so far, if you want to like stick to world building consistency, it felt off to me. But it was like one sequence in the entire movie, honestly. Like, I can't complain too much. And this is like, I think, my only real criticism that I have about the movie, honestly. So pretty solid.
A couple other little things. We mentioned earlier the priest. I just found this out. The priest was Robert Duvall. You might want to look at the face and you'll be like, oh, that guy. He was in a lot of like older like westerns and stuff.
Yeah.
He's a bigger actor. That was the priest. And he just happened to be in town, and the director was a friend of his. So he shot that scene as the priest for free. He just happened to be there. And it's a foreshadowing. He's supposed to be a pod person. He is the first pod person in the film.
Nice. Called it.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask also, since you've read the book.
No, I've not read the book. Then
I'll cut that part out.
No, you can ask me though. I might know it. I might know enough about it.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I assume they stick closely to the source material since both of them don't differ too much plot-wise. Then it would make sense that both are pretty faithful adaptations.
I do actually know this. So the movie came out in 1956, right? The book came out in like 1955 or 1954. The movie was like really quickly adapted after the book because the book was so popular. The only thing that's different in the movie versus the book, at least the original, right, is that in the original movie's ending, he gets away and he gets the girl gets changed, everybody gets changed, and he gets to another town, and they don't believe him. Like, he gets to another city, and nobody's taken over in the other city yet, and the police don't believe him. Nobody believes him, and they throw him in jail. And as the movie's ending and he's in jail, and they're like talking about taking him to a psychologist or putting him in a nut house or whatever, right? A phone rings, and it's a military personnel talking about these waves of people flooding from the town he came from, and all these plants or something like that. And they're like, he's telling the truth. Get the troops ready. He's telling the truth or whatever, right? And so then it fades out. And it kind of leaves it on this moment of like, are they going to succeed or are they not? Like, he obviously got away and got to tell people, but I mean, they're pretty well armed. You know what I mean? You're not quite sure what's going to happen. In the book, he gets away and they immediately believe him. And that's the end of the book.
Okay.
And that's the only major difference, at least in the book and in the original movie.
Interesting.
What they tried to make a darker ending by giving it this whole, he went to jail and like he's now, because they like leave too. They like leave. Everybody leaves the jail and like leaves him locked up to go like fight this menace real quick or whatever. So he's now like stuck in a jail cell.
Yeah.
So like it's kind of a gray area ending. So I think that this one they tried to go even darker. You know what I mean?
There's not even like the possibility that he got to help someone. Everyone pretty much got taken over. Yeah.
And then the third adaptation, the one that doesn't exist in Ba Sing Se, is like I think the lady is the main character. They make the lady the main character, but she very much like no one survives at all. Nobody. I don't even think she's like literally no one in the world. By the time she has like gotten to the end of whatever, she even talks to like their leader, I think, or something like that, and the entire world is done. It's over. So every adaptation is just trying to like make it darker.
I just realized there's a Rick and Morty episode that is kind of like this. Like there's this one species that takes over and becomes like one unanimous kind of thing. And there's even I don't know, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, I think, was it? I realized where it's also like it's not a complete adaptation or anything.
There might be 3 because I don't remember that.
But yeah.
I know the Rick and Morty one. He ends up dating it too, doesn't he? He ends up dating like the entire species of thing. Yeah. That's so funny. It's iconic.
For sure.
That's for sure. Zombies had their analogies and their reason why they resonated so well for people in the 2010s, you know. Zombie films were fucking everywhere. Yeah. There's reasons why certain types of horror characters or sci-fi characters resonate with people for certain eras. And I could really see pod people coming back, honestly, in a lot of ways, just in general, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that.
The last note I have on this movie is I just thought was kind of interesting. Leonard Nimoy's character, Kibner, when he gets taken over, in the original, he says, "You'll be born again into an untroubled world, free of anxiety, fear, and hate." And then in the new version of the one we watched, he says, "You'll be born again into an untroubled world, free of love, desire, ambition, and faith." And I just thought that was a very interesting parallel between which things we'd be free of. What's scarier?
Or even you could look at it as like the negative image of it, where, you know, without love, without hate, there wouldn't be no love. You know, this kind of philosophy of you need darkness to see light. So it doesn't really matter if he lists the positive or the negative things. The implication is kind of the same. You're just numbed down at the end of the day. So it's kind of a glass half full or glass half bad. Glass.
I've never heard that, but I like it.
Obviously, I misspoke. No. Glass half full or glass half empty. A kind of thing where they mean the same thing. It's just an outlook difference.
That's so funny. Wow, that was really good, bud. No, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. I can't speak to the 50s version why free of anxiety, fear, and hate hits that communism level necessarily. I don't know why it would. But that idea of the 70s and the free love generation ending and this rise of the conservative era of the 80s, right? Makes sense that you're free of love, desire, ambition, and faith. And the faith, is obviously just because people were still very religious. Leftist people were still religious at that time. Not that they aren't now, but you know what I mean. But I could see why that makes more sense for that time period, to make people afraid that they'd lose love, I do want to say two things about the 50s version, just really quick, that I really like. The first one is something that they did in the 50s one, is that it does that really old trope where the beginning of the movie starts with him in jail and he's telling the people who he's finally gotten to what happened. So the whole movie is him telling that story, right?
Okay.
What a shitty trope. I love that trope. It's such a dumb movie trope of like the movie starts with you telling the story of what happened. God, it's so stupid. And they don't do it anymore, but I still kind of love it. But it really makes sense why they didn't do it in this one, because that wouldn't have worked, because he was a pod person by the end.
They changed the ending.
So it's so it's kind of funny that if you had watched the original and then watched this and you pick that up, from the very first beginning that he's not going to be normal by the end.
That's
you kind
fun.
of already have that figured out.
Or you can assume, at least, yeah.
Yeah, you can assume it, yeah. The second thing about that is a trope that is in the first
real quick,
movie
before you move on to the second one, it still definitely gets used sometimes. Grand Budapest Hotel isn't that old, that is kind of the same framing device.
Oh, it does, yeah, it does.
So from time to time, we still see that kind of framing device for sure.
It's just definitely an old-fashioned one.
Mm.
But the second trope that I really liked, that is not in this movie, is not played out in this movie in any way, is that the main character is a doctor, and the female lead is his nurse specifically, and she is like madly in love with him, and he's just like, quiet woman, I have science to do. And like he's just completely uninterested in her in that way. And that's such a funny trope that 1950s sci-fi used to do all the time, was this idea of like the scientist that's trying to do important work and the woman next to him that just wants love. And it's such a fucking like mad outdated thing. And I would love to see a gender flipped version of that these days. So if they want to do another invasion, that's what they should do. They should do like the female scientist and her like whiny male assistant that's like, I just want you to love me, Deborah. And like, I'd be all about that.
That would definitely be a way more Looney interpretation of the source material.
Are you going to continue with that? Are you going to keep leading that in?
No, that's the whole thing.
That was it. That was just Looney. Okay. Speaking of Looney.
I'm really bad at these things. You usually do those transitions.
Oh my God. Speaking of Looney, let's tune in to our next film. It's terrible. Oh, that was terrible. It hurt me to say that out loud.
Now you know how I felt when I spoke.
Oh shit. Oh, it was really good. I think we should just keep that. Yeah, let's do it. Let's move on to our next film. That's totally fine.
Warning. The following program contains spoilers. Viewers' discretion is advised.
The Day the Earth Blows Up follows Looney Tunes stars Daffy Duck and Porky Pig, who, while working at a gum factory to earn enough money to fix their broken roof, uncover an alien mind control plot, utilizing the gum to take over the Earth. Teaming up with Petunia Pig, a flavor scientist at the factory, the trio take on the alien menace in an attempt to save the world, only to discover that the alien was only just trying to save everyone from a giant meteor by blowing a bubble around the Earth, because the humans create the most precious resource in the galaxy, boba tea. Would you go so far to save the planet for boba tea?
I don't know if I would save it for many reasons, but boba tea is a good argument, to be honest.
Do you guys even have boba tea in Austria? No.
Do you guys even have boba tea?
No. It's so funny.
The American invention, boba tea.
The American invention. Hey, on the side, if you check our mutual hangout area, I posted angrily about Starbucks making their own version of boba tea and calling them refreshers. I posted about that.
Fair.
Fucking, you're gonna put boba tea in cans and call it milk tea with beads? Fuck off.
Yeah. To answer your question, even we stone men in Austria did acquire boba tea a while ago. I had boba tea like 3 days ago last time, so yeah.
That's so funny. Where I was living before, the nearest boba tea place was probably like 30 minutes away. And then now where I live, there's like literally 2 within a walking distance. So for me, it just feels like it's blown up in the last like 5 years exactly how much boba tea is everywhere.
Here it's a bit different. They really blew up like, I want to say like 14 years ago. It feels like that long ago, something like that, more than 10 years ago. And then it kind of went back, and it has a little bit of a resurgence now in recent years. But like the big boom was like a good decade ago now, here at least.
That's so interesting. I want to ask you, George, first, what is your familiarity with the Looney Tunes? Not your connection, just how familiar are you with what they are?
Similarly to the other film, Looney Tunes is also by far not my expertise. Looney Tunes wasn't really part of my childhood at all. I don't think I have seen any Looney Tunes media really growing up. It was just always like this general cultural osmosis thing going on where I was still aware of it. I was aware of the characters, at least like the main characters' names and so on. But other than that, I'm, again, kind of blind on this one. Please, Devyn, enlighten me.
It seems like Austria didn't really have a lot of Looney Tunes, actually, like access to it. It didn't play on any of your television channels. It wasn't until Apple Plus that it was available for wide release in Austria.
Well, there you go. Now I know why it never really.
So you have McDonald's, but you don't have Looney Tunes. The one time I should have like, do you even have Looney Tunes there? And you would have been like, no, we don't actually.
I assumed it was a mistake on my end, not on Austria's end.
No, apparently it's an Austrian thing. Let's look back a little bit. First, let's get this out of the way. Looney Tunes, first and foremost, do you know where it was played? Like how people watched it?
Oh, was it like just in between, like shorts in between double bills?
So before movie trailers were a thing, in the theater, when people were sitting down and getting ready for the movie, at the beginning of every movie, they would show you a clip of the news, of some type of news.
Yeah.
And then Looney Tunes. And so Looney Tunes predated every single theatrical run of any movie. In fact, there's like a database you can look up for movies when they came out in theaters, what Looney Tunes cartoon was associated with that movie. I'm talking everything from children's movies to what would be considered grown-up movies of the time. Of course, they didn't have a rating system at the time, but you know what I mean. So Looney Tunes is integrally integrated into film and theaters from the beginning. That's, I think, a good basis to know. Now, as far as the actual history of the Looney Tunes, in 1930, Warner Brothers released the first Looney Tunes short, which was called Stink It in the Bathtub. And it starred a now defunct character named Bosco. It's not the greatest character. We're not going to really get into him. But it was an attempt to steal or mimic Walt Disney's own Mickey Mouse shorts, which were at the time being called Silly Symphonies, hence Looney Tunes. So 3 years on, and Warner Brothers decides to expand past these 2 main characters and hire some more directors. Namely, this was Tex Avery, Friz Freleng, and Robert Clampett. These new directors went to work on Looney Tunes on a Looney Tunes color spinoff, because all Looney Tunes at the time were entirely black and white. This spinoff was not only meant to just introduce color to cartoons, but it was to try to make use of the expansive Warner Brothers musical library that they had. So they called it Merry Melodies. Porky Pig was the very first big star, and he was created by Isadora Friz Freleng in 1935. His first short was called I Haven't Got a Hat. Very silly old short. Soon after, in 1937, Tex Avery and Bob Clampett debuted Daffy Duck in a Porky's Duck Hunt cartoon. More characters followed, and eventually we got Bugs Bunny, who actually wasn't really made by one guy, but was the kind of creative, unified work between 6 different animators and directors. Eventually, Looney Tunes adopted the same exact color effects and famous characters that Merry Melodies was using. They got rid of Bosco, and they got rid of, all that stuff. they basically got to a point where it was which cartoon got what short didn't matter anymore. And it was both of them being the same thing. In 1944 to 1964, Looney Tunes was on top of their game, and literally every single movie theater in the world was showing their shorts. By 1970, they started putting them on television on reruns. After 70 years of numerous films and series, the characters of Looney Tunes remain some of the most recognizable and memorable characters in animation, unless you live in Austria, apparently. That's the quick nutshell. There's so much more involved from a thing that started in 1930 to now, 2025, it's almost 100 years, there's various eras. There's the golden era, the silver era, the platinum era. It's actually what they're called. And they differentiate which kind of directors were there, the animation styles they took, all kinds of things. There's a huge history here. But beyond that, I have personally a pretty strong connection to Looney Tunes. My grandfather, he remembered the times of watching them in theaters, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was obsessed with Looney Tunes. He loved Looney Tunes. I was wearing Looney Tunes socks yesterday. It was a huge thing in my life to always see Bugs Bunny stuff and just all the ephemera type things that would go with Looney Tunes. My grandfather had jackets. He had, lunchbox type stuff, everything you can imagine that was merchandised of it. He moved eventually to Santa Fe, New Mexico, which is right outside of Albuquerque. I know you probably don't know the reference, but there's a famous line that Bugs Bunny repeats often. He is digging somewhere, pops out of the ground and goes, "I took a wrong turn at Albuquerque." This is a reference to Chuck Jones, who we didn't mention really in this whole history, but he was a very influential, more like the 80s, 90s, 70s, late 70s, 80s, 90s eras of Looney Tunes. He was a big voice of Bugs Bunny. He's pretty much the guy who came up with the "What's up, Doc?" That's like his imprint on that, right? He lived in that area for a long time and had an art gallery in Santa Fe, New Mexico, that I spent a lot of time at as a young person, bothering the gallery owners and meeting Chuck Jones, not realizing who the fuck I was talking to, trying to bug this old guy about the paintings he had of a Cat in the Hat, because the gallery was of all kinds of old artists. So either way, my connection is very deep with this character, especially through my grandfather. I really love the Looney Tunes. My grandfather's been gone for 11, 12 years now, almost about 11 years. And every year on his birthday, I still watch Looney Tunes. So this movie was a huge deal for me. So before I geek out, nerd out even harder than I already am, what did you think about the film?
I liked it a lot. There's a lot about the writing that surprised me. There were things that I thought I disliked until the movie called me out for it.
I can't wait for that.
Yeah, it was just really well written. It had great character arcs. It used the characters really well within the plot. There's lovely moments of stylization, particularly in the beginning, and that were just stunning visually. Yeah, there's obviously some goofy stuff, and to me this won't ever be like a favorite movie or anything, but it was still a great experience.
Awesome. I like to hear that. I like to hear that a lot. This is a out the ballpark movie for me. This is a 10 out of 10. This is probably going to be one of my top movies that I have in my life forever. We had talked about it before. I was really trying to push this to be paired with something like The Boy and the Heron or something, because of its 2D hand animated nature and like a dichotomy of different cultures and how they handle this last bastion of 2D animation. But the more I've thought about it, I almost wish we would have paired this with a movie that more reflected the release nature of this film, which I think is the first thing I really want to get out of the way, is that we almost didn't get this.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't even released or distributed by Warner Brothers. This is distributed by a company called Ketchup, who basically begged them for the rights. They were like, "Hey, we caught a screening of it. We see that you've shelved it. You have no intention of releasing it. We would love to buy the rights to distribute it." And they had to get like a lot of push to get it done. It took a lot of work and a lot of like petitions and all kinds of shit. to get this released, even by a secondary company.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, they didn't market it at all. I literally never saw a single trailer or commercial for this. I never saw any ads, anything, any type of anything to let you know this movie existed. It was only in most theaters for about a week. This movie, they did not want this to happen.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it even got a cinematic release here. There's this one really great cinema in Vienna that does a lot of niche animation stuff, and I might have just missed it because I don't always pay attention to everything they play. But there's a good chance I could see it have like a single weekend where they screened it there, and that's probably it. I couldn't find like anything online. It released digitally. Yeah, you can rent it on Amazon Prime and probably also like Apple.
Yeah, this was not really. I almost wish we would have paired it with that, because while the other movie was a good movie and stuff, this does not have a lot in common with Body Snatchers. Really, vagueness of the mind control plot and stuff. Yeah, for sure. A little more just on the actual creation of this film and how it got to happen. Eric Urquhart. I don't know how the guy pronounces his name. That's insane. Urquhrt. Was a full-time employee at DreamWorks, moonlighting for this movie. He didn't tell his bosses at all. He only worked on this movie literally at nighttime with a group of other animators that were from various other companies. This was completely made in secret by without telling any of those people.
How long into the project was it a secret? Like they didn't completely create?
I don't know that, actually. I don't know that. I have no idea. I just know that they were paid by WB to make the project, and it was literally a team of animators that did it on their own time, in their own studios, in their own places, and then collaborated, brought the project together. And then WB was like, cool, we don't want to do anything with it.
That's wild.
Isn't that wild? So this was like a dream project for the people that made it. This was and I think that really shows in this movie how much care and love was really put in this film. This film wasn't made from a really corporate or commercial standpoint. This was made purely for the love of art, for the love of animation, and for the love of Looney Tunes, which is, again, why I feel like it really holds up with a Ghibli movie in that way, because of that real core love of animation.
You can feel that it is a passion project just within the things that I already mentioned about it. The way they use the characters to their individual advantages, and the way the story is written around that and perfectly has a character arc for all of them. It's clearly a story where people really cared about the characters they're working with, about the world they're working with. This wasn't like a cash grab at all. You can feel that for sure.
The very opening sequence of this film, the very, very opening of the scientists seeing the meteor come down, that is a clear homage to so many films. One's mainly Invaders from Mars starts very much like this, with the meteor crashing and going to discover what it is, and then mind control takes over the town. It's a really old deep cut movie right there. And then it's almost even a little Men in Blackish. I feel like it's got that same kind of thing. I thought that was kind of a fun thing.
That actually kind of got me. Like in that very sequence, we see the way the roof is broken, like the big hole the meteor punches into their roof. And I didn't put one and one together and get that it is the house by Daffy Duck and Porky Pig.
So when they freak out that there's a hole in your roof, they're like, oh shit, that's their roof.
Yeah, exactly. To me, that was like a miniature plot twist or like a joke that's well set up, because they fix, quote unquote, all these dozen problems before their inspection. And the way it is set up, the cheap joke would obviously be that she complains about all these things they supposedly just fixed, because obviously they didn't. And then the camera pans up and it's one thing that they hadn't even considered in the first place. It kind of comes out of nowhere, but for the viewer, it again doesn't. It's something that's already established. That's just well written. That's a well thought through sequence.
So I'm guessing you didn't catch the bird foreshadowing.
The bird foreshadowing? No, I probably didn't. No.
So Porky Pig wakes up, and a little bird is in the room, and he's like, "Good morning, bird," or whatever, and like it's like almost like Cinderella-ish, like his waking up process, right? Every single edit, every single cut following them from that moment to where they actually start working on the house, right? There is another bird added to the scene. By the time they go to finally work, there are literally like 9 birds walking and floating around them. Every time the camera changes, another bird has
I didn't
flown in
realize
from just somewhere.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, so about 14 minutes in is when I realized something. I just finished watching the third montage of this movie. The backstory was one.
Okay, yeah.
The repairing of the house was
that's literally
one.
my next point.
And then
that's my next point.
Trying to get work and getting fired was also a montage within 14 minutes.
Yep.
And here you are already calling this like one of your most important movies of all time for you, probably. How so, Devyn?
Yep. So, I mean, the phrase, the exception to the rule exists for a reason. I think a big thing is because they happen so early that it's more like exposition storytelling more than it feels like a lazy point. This movie's very full already. The first montage of them growing up, that would have been a hard thing to show in a long form. So I give that one away, right? Also, the Farmer Jim character is hilarious.
Yeah.
The montage being funny helps. You know what I mean? The montage itself being actually funny helps. In that direct montage, I literally have 2 notes of that we get an immediate foreshadowing of that this is going to be darker than normal Looney Tunes is, with showing Porky Pig speak perfectly and then Daffy dropping something on his head and giving him a stutter for the rest of his life. Great fucking joke. Yeah, so I think the montage as being really funny worked. The fixing the house montage, I think, is less of a montage. There isn't music playing over it. They're actually talking. They're using dialogue and stuff while they fix the house. So I wouldn't have even noticed that one as a montage. The working one, that one is unique. That's very unique because it's set up like an episode of Looney Tunes. It stops. They do the like intro, Daffy Duck and Porky Pig in finding a job, and it like makes it feel like an actual Looney Tunes short more than a montage. So again, you're not wrong. It's a montage, but they are hidden so well, I think, that only really the first one feels like it. But you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I fell in love with montages.
The fun thing is, I do agree with pretty much everything you just said, but for the first half of your explanation, I just had this giant grin because I remembered every time that I had those exact explanations as to why a montage works, in my opinion.
All right. Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. That's fair.
So that's
so
just
funny.
a very satisfying payoff for the whole arc of our podcast here for me.
Yes, it is. I bet that is. Yes. What did you think of Farmer Jim?
I loved the crooked animation of his. It's so good. Like, he is the most detailed character when it comes to his design, and he's the worst animated character as well. That's such a good idea. Oh my god, that's such a great joke. I love that.
The amount of visual gags in this movie is so good, man. Like, even if you don't fall in love with this story, even if it doesn't ring out to you, the amount of visual little gags that are just in the background for a second or are there momentarily that work is, for me, so much better than so many like modern animated comedies have been.
For sure. There's a few times where it kind of got me even within a scene, like the whole setup when they first meet. What's the new character's name?
Petunia. Not new, actually. Petunia comes from 1937, and she was retired from 1940 to 1972 when she finally came back. But yeah, she's not a comic character.
This is so much fun to just have a live fact checker.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. It's great. Yeah, the whole setup of how the scene plays out when they meet Petunia feels like a scene incoming of just, Daffy Duck being the most cringe-worthy wingman ever. The way he's like, I got this, just lean back, basically. And you expect the humor to come to be this basic cringe humor. And then all of a sudden he misunderstood and accidentally becomes the best wingman ever within 30 seconds. That's a great little twist on expectations.
It's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Fun fact about that scene, they are at Clampett's Diner, which, as I mentioned before, Looney Tunes was invented not invented, but a big work was done by Bob Clampett. So it's a clear market, him. Furthermore, of all of the voices in this movie that sound a little strange and a little off, the waitress walks up and takes their order. And her voice is a little bit different. Her voice isn't as animated and isn't as cartoony as everybody else's. This is because she's just a normal old lady, man. That's Ruth Clampett. That's Bob Clampett's daughter, just having a little cameo in the film.
That's lovely.
Yeah, like that. I like that little part. Before we go too a little farther, you talk about Daffy Duck in this scene, and you're talking about his, subverting the expectations of him being, the worst wingman ever. As somebody that's not super familiar with Daffy Duck, when you think of Daffy Duck, is this the kind of Daffy Duck you think of? This goofy, zany, makes mistakes and is just loony character? Is that what you think of?
Yeah, my very limited view or my very limited expectation kind of matched that. Yeah, a character that's kind of just prone to make mistakes, get the group into trouble, I guess. Hijinks ensue.
So that is really common. This view of Daffy Duck that's like, the goofy, daffy, silly guy. Daffy originally, as his name implies, is daffy. He's silly. He's goofy. He's a wackadoo. The mallet is a big part of his character back in the day. I personally call this bottom Daffy because often he's drawn with a heavier bottom. Like his butt is literally bigger than his top is. But for a long time, through the 80s and to like the late 2000s, Daffy wasn't silly at all. Most modern cartoons do not have Daffy being a silly character. If you think about Space Jam, even, right? Daffy's not really silly in that at all. And that's what I call the top Daffy, which is because they draw often his top bigger than his bottom, or they draw it about the same size. It's like his chest is more poofed up. I've sent you a couple pictures that kind of demonstrate that. For about half of the Daffy's of being a character, he's either the really goofy version or he's greedy, mean, and self-centered. And that's the other version of Daffy, is this like, I'm an asshole character. So you're more familiar though with the goofy version.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Barely familiar with either of them, but yeah, that was fair. My expectation.
You've seen Space Jam.
I have seen Space Jam like once years ago, man. It even that went past me. I'm really like Looney Tunes is so far off the radar for me.
You should start watching one Looney Tunes short. They're 4 minutes long before every movie you watch. This version of Daffy is clearly the, iconic older form of Daffy. We got this crazy, silly guy. That was a big reason why they didn't think the movie was going to work, because the modern audience doesn't know that Daffy. That Daffy has not existed since the 50s.
I guess since we're on Daffy, I can get into like the big way this movie got me.
Okay, yeah.
These are like the collected notes in order, basically, of how I had to revise my thoughts on Daffy whilst this movie was happening.
Awesome.
I put by the end, I put the label on top of it, my roller coaster with Daffy. So first, I wrote down, some of the wackier slapstick really does nothing to me. When Daffy says he wants to put out the fire and starts hitting it with a hammer, I'm just rolling my eyes. Like, that's so cheap. And the movie showed it can do so much better. Like, minutes later, we see a scene where an offhand slapstick joke blows up a gas station due to burning gum. Except it's kind of a unique scenario. It's pretty funny if you ask me. But the whole, there's a problem, I'ma fix it by smashing it with a hammer, has the same vibe to kind of this how to basic humor in videos. Was my first thought. later, the movie addresses this directly. By first, Porky having that kind of foresight. He doesn't want Daffy to go along.
Mm-hmm.
He wants Daffy to stay behind and just be occupied laying eggs, which for me, in my mind, Daffy Duck confirmed trans mask. Just putting it out there. Then Daffy himself has that kind of character growth and understands it himself that he's prone to fuck things up.
Mm-hmm.
He might lead to mistakes, and he wants the others to take the responsibility in the moment of a dire situation. Then we go even beyond that with a fourth wall break and a cinema visitor complaining about Daffy, which was literally me. Which was literally me. It was like directly calling me out for writing the first note like 30 minutes earlier, and only to then flip it in a way where the senseless smashing by the end is the one thing they needed, where the plot demands it and they have an actual reason to do so. Like,
Amazing.
they really thought through exactly that kind of complaint I could have had with the slapstick and made it an integral part by the end. Plus, they called me out. Like, what the hell?
See, this is why I'm saying, man, this might not be your favorite fucking animated movie, but you can't, come on, man. This has got to be one of the best written animated movies not by Disney in the last 10 years. God, it's so well written. So as a double of that, right? Like, I obviously wasn't like laughing at his first smashing. I didn't think that's funny. It's not supposed to be funny. Like you said, it's a plot device to get you convinced of what he is, right? But it also shows people like me which Daffy we're dealing with. We're not dealing with angry, annoyed, selfish Daffy. This is goofy Daffy, and that's your like key in that's who this is. Awesome. That's awesome. What a great journey to go through with that character. Holy shit. These little visual gags, like you said, the gas station blowing up is such a good visual gag or whatever that they did on the off camera or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. This movie has so many of these. I'm going to be real honest with you. I've watched this movie 4 times already. There are so many visual gags that only literally last a second. There's a moment where the scientist who's been zombified, right? Uh-huh. He's walking through that spaceship and there's all kinds of like beakers he's walking past. And when he walks past them, they change the faces, the shape of his face, right? Mm-hmm. And like the first one, it's like skinny and weird. And the second one, it's all bloated. You know, like they look like magic mirrors. Yeah. Like they're kind of silly, right? The last one, his face is literally like a perfectly anatomical horse. And it's only there for a split second. God, great. That's so funny. That's so funny. Yeah, there's the whole movie is full of little itty bitty things like that. The gum sequence is really fantastic, which is again, it's like almost a music video-y montage, right? Mm-hmm. That's another thing I think actually I didn't even mention, I guess, is about like you saying like these are montages, right? Is that
that's just what they were. Yeah.
That's just what they were. Yeah, that's literally what they were.
You kind of mentioned it.
That's all that is.
You kind of mentioned it,
yeah. Yeah. So, but that sequence, just the fact that that's fucking hand animated without any digital assistance is amazing. That is I don't know, man. That's a marvel of modern animation. I think that sequence right there.
I totally agree. That sequence was incredibly stunning. Like by far visually, like my favorite thing of the movie. And you're totally right. This is up there for a current day 2D animation. There's a few things that I can think of that were this stunning.
It makes me think, by the way, you know, that guy Eric Urquhart or whatever his name is, right? Eric Urquhart. I'll figure it out. But he and his little team of animators that made this, right? There's very little known about a lot of this. We're not talking, you know, because how much WD's kept this under wraps. We don't, you know a lot of the little facts about who worked on what scenes or things like that, right? Mm-hmm. I think that this team, this guy, is in the next 20 years going to be talked about in the same way that we talk about other big time animators. I think this is the birth of somebody big. For this to be your first 2D animated film you've ever worked on in your life, and this is what you produced, and this is the first one, oh man, we are in for it. We are in for some fantastic. I think this is going to be the ramp up to a golden age of 2D animation. WB has already confirmed that they have 4 more movies in the works now because of this. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I hope it's not limited to the kind of Looney Tunes-esque animation. Like studios might kind of take a very limited takeaway from its success. But yeah, any kind of resurgence of 2D animation in the English-speaking world, or I guess like American animation world, there's still Cartoon Saloon, but yeah, is just a blessing.
Touching back on the Gum Factory, they're wearing very specific hats. Everybody's got these like very funny, like baseball looking kind of worker hats on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are a callback to Daffy Duck's first ever cartoon made by Bob Clampett.
Nice.
But that whole scene, them being in the gum scene, I think my favorite thing in that entire scene, every time I've watched this movie, I almost cry laughing every time. It's so stupid. But when Daffy's following the zombified scientist,
mm-hmm.
and his eyes peek around the corner, and the zombie turns around, and then his eyes just flatten to the floor. His eyes flatten to the floor to hide. Fuck, that's so funny. Oh my God, that's so funny. I don't know why that joke hits me so hard every time. I want like a GIF of that joke. Oh my God.
I think it's the fact that it feels like a very natural extension to a really old Looney Tunes-esque animation trope. Like the eyes peeking around the corner like that is such a classic image, but it feels like something that people should have already come up with that exact joke like decades ago, because it's so obvious now in hindsight that you could do something like that, but they just never did. Like it's one of those moments. Yeah, it's kind of funny that their job is just to push a button and pull a lever in an otherwise completely automated factory line. Like those jobs would be the first to be automated away.
So funny.
That was super funny to me.
I mean, I should have talked about the HOA character, the homeowner association character, the pink dressed lady.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole thing in America called the Pink Ladies. It's kind of a call out to her. They drew that lady way more voluptuous than they needed to. She's got way too much cake going on. But no, the next character that we are introduced to is the mayor.
I'm actually gonna jump in on that because I also have a note on something that I didn't like fully vibe with, where I thought like, okay, do we really need that sexualization? The scene where they fight over trying to gum. So like Daffy wants to stop Porky from eating the gum.
Oh my God, the foot.
And they fall on the floor, and then he just chews and sucks on the foot. And it's like, man, I know like that used to be a thing in older cartoons that they would just do so much fart and like foot stuff. Is that funny? Do we really need that? It just feels like fetish content at that point. It's like, man, I don't know.
I think I've thought about this a lot, because that is a common thing in the Letterboxd reviews, is talking about that scene.
Or is it?
And it is actually, yeah. And a lot of people like have like 4 or 5 star reviews, and they're like foot fetish for the win or something like that. Like a lot of people embrace it more than hate it.
Yeah, that's what I feel like.
I think it's for the meme. I think it's for the meme.
Man, because to me it just feels like it really just feels like as if it was exactly for those kind of people who would obviously enjoy
it was.
Yeah,
I think it was. But it is also a little bit of, again, you talk about like old visual gags, classic visual gags, right? Excuse me. Oh my gosh.
I just feel like you can leave some stuff in the past.
Well, an old visual gag that they would do is when 2 characters get in a fight, namely somebody that's eating another person, like say Wile E. Coyote and or Tom and Jerry is a good example, right? These kind of characters that were like a person's trying to eat the other character.
Mm-hmm.
They would like get in a tussle, and then one would come out, and the person trying to eat them would stop and realize they're chewing on their own leg.
Yeah.
And that's like kind of a common joke. So I think that it's just that joke extrapolated onto like the third party. You'd expect him to be chewing on Daffy Duck, but he's actually chewing on Petunia. That's the joke. Now, the animated spit, I think that's what changes it. I think if they didn't animate the spit so fluidly that it wouldn't have come off so sexual. It didn't have to be so fucking wet, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about it a little bit. Cuz it is a little much.
Yeah, to me that's something we, in my opinion, could have left in the past and not brought it back into a modernized version of this.
That's so funny. The next major character that we meet in this movie is the mayor. And this is, only a fun fact because the mayor, that's Wayne Knight. I don't know if you know who that is.
No.
It's the guy who ruins everything in Jurassic Park.
Oh, okay.
Okay. This is his second Looney Tunes movie because he's in Space Jam. He's the only person for some reason to be in like multiple Looney Tunes films. I don't even think, if I'm not mistaken, right, that the Bugs Bunny voice actor from the original one, Space Jam, is even the same as the second Bugs Bunny Space Jam or the Looney Tunes Back in Action movie. I think that Wayne Knight is the only reoccurring actor in any Looney Tunes film. But I could be wrong. But I'm pretty sure.
We either just started
a rumor
or had the second Medicinema exclusive originated movie trivia.
That's good, yeah. Let's move on to like Daffy's freaking out, right? He's freaking out. He's seeing all the things happen around him, and he's right before we meet the mayor, essentially, right? And he does this whole like naked screaming speech or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's like a direct homage to They Live, him freaking out and seeing everybody for what they really are.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then his whole like speech of like him screaming at the people reminded me of the Simpsons movie.
Yeah.
When the grandpa has his whole like freak out in like the church.
Apa.
And Apa. And both of them are so like, even though you know what's happening kind of and it's a silly animated movie, their freak out is so like commanding that you're like, oh shit, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Like it actually gives you this impending feeling a little bit. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, that's true.
Another little quick visual gag in that moment is he sees the little girl who eats the gum, and the little girl that he like tries to get the gum out of her mouth or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, she's sitting around a bunch of chalk drawings, and they're just like stars and stuff and things like that. And then she eats the gum, and it cuts back, and the ground just says the word chew over and over and over again in chalk all around her. Like she's still being a little girl, but she's just writing the word chew everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Feels perfectly fine in character and in, the world building rules they established. Makes sense.
Yeah. Then the next major character we meet, obviously, is the villain of the movie, is the alien, which is my only issue with this film, actually.
Yeah, I have one there too, yeah.
I don't like the voice acting for the character.
Okay, I have a different one.
Okay, it's just Daffy Duck's voice actor.
Okay.
Just sounding more serious. They sound already Daffy Duck and Porky Pig sound too similar because they were originally voiced by the same guy. So they already have similar sounding voices. But that character added on top was just too much. Like, why? No, get somebody. It should have been Alan Tudyk, but I bet he's tired of playing aliens and robots. But it should have been Alan Tudyk.
I didn't even have an issue with that one. My bigger problem there, like that's the only real story complaint I have. The twist that the alien was trying to save the Earth, like the way it was revealed felt forced. That's something of the whole. A single conversation could have avoided all of this. They wanted
fully.
to stop him because they thought he wants to take over the world, and he must be very aware of how it looks, how it comes across, how people would react if they found out, and for what reason they would try to stop him, and that he could have just gone up to them earlier and been like, yo guys, there's this comment coming and I'm just here to help. Let me do my thing. In 5 days I'll be gone again and you'll have your way again. All of that was super fast. That being said, I, again, totally forgot that in the beginning, the scientist discovers the meteor.
He discovers it first.
Yeah, hurtling towards the Earth. And it's, again, one of those things that is established. And we forgot about it. And then that specific detail of the twist, incredible. That is, again, a high point of the writing. It's just a bit pain the way they had to like enforce that twist later on.
I do agree with you to a big degree, because the aliens, his big lead up in the beginning is like, I am going to take over everything and no one will be able to stop me in protecting or keeping at Earth's most sacred resource or something. But he definitely makes it sound like I'm going to take everything over to steal all the water or some shit, you know?
Yeah.
It is very forced into making you think that he's the bad guy. I kind of added up to like, oh, they don't have enough money to fix the roof in their house, but they had enough money to buy flamethrowers and to buy bicycles and just Looney Tunes shit, cartoon logic, you know. So I kind of throw it up to that, but you're not wrong at all. It is ham-fisted, for lack of better puns. A lot of people's problem actually seemed like with that character, the alien, is that he's an original character. He is I think the main original character, and that it wasn't Marvin Martian. Because that would make sense, right?
Yeah, I can see how fans could be annoyed by that. I can see that, yeah.
The reason for that is because there's a very old show, very, very old real life show called Buck Rogers, right? I don't know if you've ever heard of Buck Rogers. It's very old sci-fi. I'm talking like 40s. I'm talking before the advent of television and film. I'm talking radio character Buck Rogers, sci-fi.
No idea.
Back when they thought you could go onto planets and take your helmet off and there was air in space. Like very old sci-fi, right? Very silly. There's a spoof of that in Looney Tunes called Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century. And Duck Dodgers is obviously Daffy Duck as his spaceman, and his main villain is Marvin the Martian. That's where Marvin the Martian comes from. Is from Duck Dodgers. So they couldn't have used Marvin the Martian because his villain is already Daffy Duck in another. It's too muddled. It doesn't make any sense. So that's why they chose not to use that character.
Devyn out here with a canon explanation why everyone is wrong.
Absolutely.
Love it.
So the whole thing about you not like knowing who Marvin the Martian is, right? Like that's weird to me. That blows my mind, right? And I think there's a deeper reason here, and it's how ingrained Looney Tunes has been into American society. I'm sending you a picture right now. This is a picture of Daffy Duck, Bugs Bunny, and Tasmanian Devil dressed up to the nines in what they would call urban streetwear of the time. For some reason, there was a huge upsurge in making the Looney Tunes characters look like rappers. This was gigantic, huge. And even rappers of the day and age right now that we have would be like, oh man, I had that Looney Tunes shirt that had bugs on it, sitting down and playing dice and shit. Like this was a big fucking deal. So even if you didn't ever watch Looney Tunes, you knew these characters because people had them on their clothes all the time.
I'm gonna blow your mind. That's exactly a huge part of why I knew these characters. That's the thing that for some reason existed here. I knew people who had like baseball caps with specifically those kind of, streetwear rapper-esque aesthetic Looney Tunes characters and t-shirts and stuff like that. I totally remember that. I'm sure that at some point I owned a clothing piece with something like that on it.
God, that's so funny. That's good. I love that. Okay, well, good. So there's some cultural crossover there. That's so funny. That's great, actually. To know that. That's so fun. That's the one thing that bled over for you guys was
at least for me specifically. Maybe it was just like a random thing where in my region some like huge collector or something sold off his thing at flea markets, and therefore it just happened. I can't speak for, but in my experience, I knew several people who had something like this, and I believe I had like a cap or something as well.
I think another big reason why this same thing about like recognition and stuff, why people didn't think this movie was going to work, is because it doesn't have Bugs Bunny in it. talking to a mutual friend of ours, I asked them if they were going to watch this, and they told me probably not. And I was like, "What? Why?" And they're like, "Because it stars Daffy Duck. Why would I want to watch that?" The entire sentiment of the duck, who greenlit this garbage, is felt all over. When I heard that they're making a Daffy Duck movie, I about pissed myself. Daffy Duck's my absolute favorite Looney Tunes character. But yeah, most people don't really care for Daffy Duck.
That's wild. And the movie was aware of that.
It's very aware of it. Yeah, they know. I like that Daffy's really trying to lay an egg, and it's like a really big struggle. He does it, but it's a struggle, and he even mentions later, like, you know how hard it is for a boy duck to lay an egg? In the beginning montage of the movie when they're growing up, he quite easily lays a couple eggs on people from high up places.
Which both fits into my totally canon and officially approved explanation that he's
transmask. Yeah.
Transmask, because it's not that physically it's harder for him now, it's mentally more difficult for him now. You see, he doesn't identify as that anymore.
That's pretty fantastic.
It all checks out.
You know, he figures it out. He decides he's not going to lay the egg anymore. He decides he's going to go, help them or whatever. And he looks toward the camera and he breaks the fourth wall and he says, "It's time for this duck to go amok." And he goes off, right?
Yeah.
Duck Amok is arguably the most famous Daffy Duck short of all time.
Oh.
In which Daffy Duck breaks the fourth wall and talks to the animator, and the animator starts reanimating everything around him and pisses Daffy Duck off over and over again, such as like, "Give me a background," and he gives him like a Wild West background, so he starts playing Wild West characters, and then the animator redraws him as like a dragon or something, and he's like, "What's going on? Why is this not matching?" And he gets really mad, and it turns out that the animator is actually Bugs Bunny just fucking with Daffy Duck the entire time. Great little double entendre of the calling out an original short, and it's breaking the fourth wall, and it's the moment that first introduced Daffy breaking the fourth wall.
That's great, yeah.
That's a great little thing right in this whole thing. Very quickly after that, we have Petunia. It gets taken. She gets turned into one of the things or whatever. That is the only thing, in my opinion, that this movie has anything to do with Invasion of the Body Snatchers, is they go, "Petunia, you're okay." And she goes, "Blah," and she does the scream. She points and does the scream from the end of Snatchers.
I mean, the general thing of like them all turning into, like, they're not clones, but they are all under the control of the alien in some sort of way. And the gum is definitely similar to the glibbery stuff that rains down from the heavens in the beginning. There is more connection. It's not like that's the only thing.
Well, so do you know about the movie The Stuff?
No.
The Stuff is a movie that's right around the time of They Live, and it's about a company that finds a hole in the ground and a pink substance that flows out of the hole. And it turns out that it's delicious and it tastes really good. So they're going to sell it and put it in bottles. But it turns you into a zombie that's mind controlled by an unseen force very quickly afterward. That is the whole theory of the movie. That's the whole point of that movie. So for me, it's less that, it's more the stuff, because you got the pink substance, you've got the corporation that's doing it. It's called Super Strongberry. I think the stuff is called Super Strong Stuff or whatever in the movie. And then my last two notes I want to point out is that not only does this movie have such good visual gags, not only is the fluid animation in all of Daffy's conversations, his face just changes so much and it's just beautifully animated, but that something we take for granted in digital movies are things that are really easy to recreate, like reflections. So when they're captured, they're walking around in that metal cage and you can see their reflections on the ground of the metal as they're walking around and talking. That's such a thing that nowadays we just take that for granted. Oh, they just, flip the image, they copy paste. It's real easy to do. Man, these motherfuckers hand animated reflections, dude. Like what a level of detail that these guys did not have to go to. That's going to be, in my opinion, completely missed by modern audiences because we're so used to how digital things have made it.
Mm-hmm. Are you like 100% sure that all of that stuff has no kind of
100%.
Digital aid?
100%.
Because there is this kind of weird thing happening in recent years with movie marketing where they love to market stuff as 100% practical when they just mean there's no like CGI elements, there's no 3D elements, but they still did some masking, they still did some compositing. Barbie is a great example for that. And I do love all things practical. I do love hand-drawn animation and stuff like that. But honestly, that seems like an instance where just flipping it literally and doing that little detail in digital seems like the logical and sensible thing to do. That's
No, it would have been. It would have been. But no, this movie is entirely hand animated on paper and done in classic cell style onto paintings.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of cases, even the paintings were hand animated at that time. A really common thing you see in those older animations is what I call the Scooby-Doo book effect. And that's where, in Scooby-Doo, you'd see the bookshelf and that one book is highlighted way more than all the other books. And you know that that's the book they're going to pull because the rest of the background is a painting, right? In this, even those background moments move fluidly and they do their things fluidly because it is all actually animated by hand. No, I think that's part of the passion project of this is they wanted it to be, let's do this on paper again like they used to. Like Looney Tunes has always been done. Remember, Bugs Bunny came well after Porky and Daffy. And Daffy appeared in a Porky cartoon. That's how he appeared. So they used the original characters. They brought back the original design style. They acknowledged multiple times the original older directors from this. This movie is completely a love story to traditional animation.
Mm-hmm.
My final note on this movie is that at the very end, we get to see them happy all together and stuff, having their bobas at the, not Texas, not the place, at Texas, like the name Tex, at Texas Tea House. That is the final big point out of the movie is that Tex Avery was one of the final big directors who really changed Looney Tunes. He is the guy who came up with the idea of breaking fourth walls in cartoons.
Mm.
He's the first person he's the guy who animated Duck and Muck and wrote Duck and Muck. But he created that idea. He's also the creator of the very famous, the wolf, awooga, with the tongue rolls out at the sexy character, right? That's Tex Avery. That was his invention. So it's really fun that they put that at the very end because so much of this movie is breaking the fourth wall and knows what it's doing. I will probably watch this movie a dozen more times and I will probably find 100 more little things in this movie. And you know what makes me the most sad about all this? I found all this out myself. Everything I've talked to you about today, there's no Wikipedia. There's no IMDb trivia thing. Nobody's writing this stuff. I should probably put it on IMDb. This movie's so ignored, man, that there's so many beautiful little trivia bits and little homages that they'll never get talked about. They'll never get noticed. And I can't believe more people don't know about or watch this movie.
Well, I'm very glad I got the first-hand educational lesson about this movie. The first masterclass. and I'm glad people right now got to listen to this. Lovely, lovely work.
I'm sorry that I nerded out so hard.
No, that was incredible.
My last exiting question. Does this make you excited for Coyote versus Acme?
I guess a little bit more than before. Is it by like the same team? No, right? It's not like...
It is not, I don't think, by the same team. And it is also not hand animated. It is digitally done.
Mm-hmm.
It also is not purely a cartoon. It is half live action.
Mm.
From what I've heard is that it also, though, is very, very, very homage filled and like very love filled, but more toward the era of something like, say, Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
I'm skeptically looking forward to it. To me, this is more so like the way you said, this is the exception to the rule for you when it comes to montages. To me, this kind of feels like the exception to the rule when it comes to nostalgia baity stuff, because it just isn't just that. You know, I like that the story is tight. I didn't get 99% of them shout outs and like
homages,
little details that you talked about, obviously. So to me, it works on all the other things. And I feel like often with these homage-heavy nostalgia movies, they rely too much on that. So I'm still very skeptical, honestly.
I'm definitely, even as much as I love this movie, I'm more skeptical for Acme because it's not hand animated. It's, what I do know about it is that not only is it an homage to like Roger Rabbit in that it's half animation, half live action, but that Roger Rabbit was a more adult approach, right? And trying to tell a darker, more adult story. Coyote versus Acme is a courtroom drama.
Yeah, I heard that before.
So, maybe it'll do its own subversion. That'll be worth another episode in the future.
Maybe.
We'll pair it with The Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Sounds great. In the next appointment, we're going to discuss vampire movies. Your first description is the 2009 released Korean film Thirst by Park Chan-Wook. It follows a priest who's dying from a deadly virus, but with a last-second blood transfusion gets brought back to life, not yet aware of the origin of said blood and what it will turn him into. It is a beautiful film about morality and how to live your life that doesn't shy away of its horror side either.
Your second prescription is Sinners, a 2025 Ryan Coogler supernatural thriller set in 1932 that follows twin brothers, played by Michael B. Jordan and Miles Caton, who return to their hometown in the American South only to find a terrifying evil has infested it.
If you don't want to get spoiled for either of these films, make sure to check them out by the next appointment. I'm George.
I'm Devyn, and this was Medicinema, your healthy dose of film.